Hi everyone. So happy to be here today. I would say probably be covering a lot of different time zones. So I'll say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm based in Barcelona today. So to me, it's just good afternoon. It's just 12 o'clock now. But I know we have represented different time zones here today with us. Um, Great to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We might just give it a few more seconds to allow everyone to join in the link. But yeah, super excited to be here today, joined by a panel of experts on everything growth and retention. So it's a topic that I'm very, very passionate about, and I'm super thrilled to be able to be here, hopefully having a chat that can bring a lot of new insights to everyone because we have quite a few of us representing different areas of the industry and what could be such a big topic as well, right? Because retention, growth, and retargeting can be quite a lot to unpack, but we'll hopefully make it a little bit easier for everyone today. Maybe we can start with some brief introductions before we dive into the questions, and that will allow people to continue joining us as well. So I'll start with myself, and then I'll pass it on around the room. My name is Vera. Nice to meet everyone. I'm a gaming account director at RTB House. We are a retargeting DSP, so we specialize in programmatic advertising for both gaming and non-gaming, and for both web and apps. So we cover the whole ecosystem when it comes to retargeting. I am specialized in gaming, so a lot of my insights today might be a little bit biased, as they might be going a little bit more towards gaming. That's also my experience, but we have that's great because we have a little bit of both worlds here today. So I'll pass it around to Hannah. Do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So, I'm Hannah Parvaz. I'm the founder of a full service growth agency called Aperture. So, we work with companies across the entire funnel. We do a lot of creative production, we do media buying, we do onboarding flows, UX design, CRM integrations and building, we work across everything. So my background before that was I was in-house for 10 years at four different mobile apps. So unlike Vera, like my most of my experience is non-gaming. Like I have very, very little gaming experience. But yeah, in-house 10 years, running growth at four different mobile apps, scaled them all up to millions of users. So when I was in house running growth, really for me, that was I was running everything we were building. So even like we're talking about 15 years ago, this was before there was a way to send out push notifications or CRM platforms. We were scripting JSON, writing JSON scripts to send out push notifications back in the day, all the way to everything that we were distributing, how we were running ads, our influencer programs, how we were building up communities, what events we were running, how we could really retain users and build those kind of really loyal customer base. So thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. Thank you. Great to have you. Yuri, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me. So my name is Yuri, and I'm regional director at Adjust. Adjust is leading measurement partner for our customers, both non-gaming and gaming companies. Before Adjust, I spent more than 10 years in different gaming studios, like VP at Belka Games, and after I had my own gaming startup as co-founder and CEO. So all of these pains I had in my previous life, and I will be happy to share some experience and how to avoid some pitfalls. And like, feel free to ask questions during this conversation. And I suggest to build this webinar not like lecture for any of us, but like a really live conversation. So don't hesitate to put any questions in chat, and we will try to answer.
For sure. Thank you. Great. And then Cağatay, do you want to go next?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm Cağatay. I'm the key account manager at SocialPeta in EMEA region. If you do not have heard about SocialPeta, is a ad intelligence platform and for mobile marketers in both gaming and non-gaming industry. At SocialPeta, I partner with the top brands and publishers in both these verticals, and we are trying to decode the market trends and optimize the advertising strategies and scale the user growth using the real-time global data. And I'm thrilled to share actionable insights from our latest reports and data today.
Amazing, thank you. We unfortunately won't have Charlie joining us today as he's feeling a little bit under the weather, but hopefully you'll have the chance to connect in the future. And if there's any questions specific that you had for Charlie and at Peak, feel free to connect directly, and I'm sure Charlie would love to help. Great. So today we will talk about how to build high value user journeys. We will cover what happens from acquisition to retention. Acquisition is normally number one focus. That's where we hear that everyone puts most of the budget and attention. And of course, that is super important, right? We need to bring users back into the app for the first time to start with. But we will cover how it's so important to continue that journey after that first touch in the acquisition, and what should we focus on going forward to make sure that we continue developing the user journey and keep the re-engagement and retention, and just have a really good experience for users in general that come to your app. We will talk about everything that goes from creative, product, data, engagement strategies, user quality, and what can help us improve retention. And also, how can we leverage AI and data to optimize these journeys, which has been such a big topic as well lately. Let's start then with our first question. So as costs of UA continue to rise, competition is of course super high, right? So app growth is increasingly defined by what happens after the install. I think when we had a little catch up earlier, Hannah was even saying that we need to start thinking before the install. So it's such a full circle. Looking at the mobile app landscape today, what do you believe is the biggest shift, and how successful companies are building high value user journeys from acquisition to long-term retention? So I feel like this topic can be so broad, but who would like to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in, of course.
Yeah.
No, I think the thing is now the volume of products that are going on the App Store and the Play Store, it's just exploded. Andrew Davies from Paddle called it a Cambrian explosion a couple of weeks ago when I was talking to him. And then it's just incredible. Whenever the App Store launched, it's about that number of apps per day that is going live on the App Store now as there were in existence when it launched. So it's kind of crazy. And we have to be thinking holistically about the entire funnel and about the entire user experience. One thing that we always need to bear in mind as well is that the vast majority of all revenue that is being generated by any apps is generated by products that are more than 5 years old, before all of the iOS IDFA changes. And it's really, really hard to break in. But at the same time, there are new players that are breaking in. There are companies that are very quickly getting to 10K, 100K, 1 million per month. And they're brand new products. Like we're seeing things like Hal AI emerge very quickly and scale up and get acquired for 50 million users. But the ways in which they're working is they're thinking really, really carefully about that entire user journey, about that onboarding flow, about the ads that are connecting to those journeys. And finally, in the last couple of years, again, we've been allowed to have a little bit more flexibility, especially in iOS, of, okay, someone clicks on this ad, now we can have a custom product page and we can deep link into a specific flow inside the app. We can start building these flows out. Ultimately, we and what you were saying earlier, Vera, about like we have to zoom out. It's so true. Like if we are trying to impact engagement, if we're trying to impact retention, then we can zoom out. We have to look at how we're acquiring users, the channels that we're bringing people through, the messages that we're saying. And so I'll give you a really clear example of what I mean from that. So we were working with a recipe app last year, and we managed to kind of more than double their ARR. They'd been around for like 9 years when we started working together. They'd reached like a certain kind of ARR, and then we managed to kind of 2.5x that in about 6-7 months, mostly through paid ads. But with this company, we were working with them on ads, creative strategy, onboarding flows. We did their UX design, CRM. But a big part of that acquisition came from ads. And one ad in particular was someone snapping a dessert like in the camera as the visual hook at the very beginning. And it was a kind of dessert snack kind of thing. And it was a recipe app, as I say. And there were other ads that were just about talking about the experience of the app, talking about cooking, talking about dinner, talking about weekly cooking. All of those ones that were talking about weekly cooking, actually, the cost per trial and the cost per acquisition was slightly higher than the one with the dessert breaking in the camera. But we actually saw that when someone was coming in from that ad or searching for the thing that was in that ad, they were twice as likely to cancel their trial. And so even though the cost per trial at the very beginning was slightly cheaper, like 5% cheaper, actually at the end of the day, they were almost 50% more expensive to actually become a paying acquired user, because they were so much more likely to cancel. So anyone that went in and started searching for snacks was twice as likely to cancel versus someone that was searching for like an actual dinner recipe or anything like that. And so that's the reason I'm saying like we can zoom out and we can start to see the impacts of some of the decisions that we're making higher up the funnel. And again, like,
and that creative is so important as well, right there, right? Because
100%.
you're showing two completely different types of creative. While if
Vastly
one
different.
might have not passed the message exactly of what that product was, and then the kind of users that you're gonna get are probably not the ones that are the most valuable, right?
Exactly. And we just have to think about that entire journey holistically and really pay attention to what are those messages that we're saying at the top of the funnel. How does that convert through that flow? And ultimately, you should be able to put hundreds of thousands of dollars through a specific flow. You know, yes, there is sense in like making all of these micro flows, but ultimately, if with a little bit of personalization in there, which shouldn't be a lot of work with some of the solutions that are available now, with a little bit of personalization, you can put hundreds of thousands of dollars through that flow. That, you know, ultimately not pull out dramatically different flows with different landing pages and things like this. Like you can do a lot with a little, as long as you're optimizing it. So yeah.
And it can be made simple as well, right? I feel like a lot of times when I speak with advertisers in the gaming space that are starting to think about retention and retargeting, everyone is a little bit put off by the work that it might involved in terms of, you know, UA, usually you give it off to a channel, they do their thing. AI will help quite a lot, but with retention and retargeting, sometimes you need to put a little bit more thought to it. But I think the very beauty of it is that you don't have to do that you know, for a very extensive period of time. You need to find the right strategy. And I think from the moment you find the right strategy and work with the right partner, it really is very simple. And there's so much that you can do with it. Yuri, what do you see from your end? Are you seeing any shift in particular? Because you have access to so much data as well, right? And from so many different industries too. Is there anything from your side that you would like to share on this?
Yeah, I think that the biggest shift is that successful teams no longer treat like acquisition part, product part, and operational part as a separate departments, and they started to collaborate with each other, and they understand that the user journey starts even before the install. What did you promise with your ad? How you onboard and how you adopt your onboarding process. to what you demonstrated through ad creatives. And like 10 years ago, like the strategy was buy the cheapest users, scale this channel, and all will work. But now the shift is from buying traffic to buying intent, because right now uh, teams start to understand that not every user is equal inside the application, because as was mentioned before, not because of users, but even because of availability of applications, games, and content which users can consume. And unfortunately, what even AI still doesn't help to us to extend our 24 hours per day. And unfortunately, I can consume more content than I usually do. Yeah, and it force teams to stop optimizing in silos, because when everyone optimize their own metrics, they business could still lose money. Like the same but working example, when you have a lower CPI but with terrible user quality, particular for your application, it means that you are inefficient, and maybe you should check other cohorts, and even with higher price for these users, they will become your users not for a week, not for a day, for years, and they will have highest they will deliver highest in product metrics for you. So it's, I think, the main shift, that the working under any product become complex, and you should understand different part of this user journey from the very beginning to retargeting.
Yes, definitely. 100% agree with you. We'll definitely talk a little bit more about that on as we get along on a session. I definitely would like to deep dive with you on it as well. Cağatay, what do you see on your end? And obviously SocialPeta will have a lot of data to unveil here probably that you can share a little bit with us. What are the biggest shifts that you see from your end?
Actually, I'm totally agree with Yuri. So the companies was working with like silos when they're building apps and scaling. Like the product teams focused exclusively on features, media buyers focused on purely driving top of funnel downloads, and monetization happened late. In current reality of rising acquisition cost and privacy-driven data signal loss, that fragmented playbook completely collapses. So the successful companies scaling consistently right now completely reimagine the user's journey by focusing on two different strategic shifts. The first one is they are using early behavior signals as proxies for long-term LTV, instead of trying to forecast accurate lifetime value in noisy post-IDFA data environment. Leading teams treat metrics like CPI or ROAS merely as the early filters to eliminate poor traffic. So they look at the critical post-install behaviors within session one, like immediate feature adoption, completing a personalized quiz, or hitting an engagement milestone, and leverage machine learning models to instantly predict retention and decide which cohorts to scale. Secondly, like they're embedding monetization directly into the core product loop early. Fear of charging users too soon creates weak downstream data signals, and meaning the automated ad networks algorithms has zero revenue data to optimize against. The winners run early monetization experiments like short trials, low friction entry-level plans, or direct web checkouts, not just for the immediate cash flow, but to feed the high intent signals back into their acquisition loops. So the sustained ad growth is no longer a performance marketing challenge or a product feature challenge. It's an infrastructure integration challenge. So teams that build high-value users journey are the ones who connect marketing signals directly to the product monetization, ensuring that every short-term acquisition dollars directly feeds to the variable retention mechanism.
Yes, for sure. And you said something there that obviously Yuri has touched on as well on the importance of product and marketing teams communication. I just came from Pocket Gamer in Barcelona, and I've organized a little get together for women in gaming one of the evenings. And we've asked people to sign up. When they sign up to add in if they wanted to talk about any specific topic, so we could do a little icebreaker session at the start. And this was the most requested topic. We didn't share any specific topics in advance. We just left it open to what would you like to talk about? And most of the people have put note that they want to talk about how product and marketing can work together and how can they have better communication with each other. So I think this is so key when we're talking about marketing, and marketing alone can't function without product, and product also needs marketing. So obviously those teams definitely needs to have more catch-ups. Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your input. Let's move on to the next question. So we talked about the importance of the few first days after install, and how to determine whether a user becomes a loyal customer or disappear forever is the golden question here. The market is super competitive. We all touch a little bit on this, or there's so many apps coming up every day, getting created every day. What makes you different? And it's not about just getting that first install, but also going forward. What is the strategy to make sure that those users continue using your app? Hannah, in your experience, what are the best engagement strategies for improving early retention?
Absolutely. I remember back in about 2017, 18, I was working on my first subscription app, and I'm coming at everything from a non-gaming app perspective. And I remember sitting like with my Mixpanel account and like plotting out the time between install and taking out a trial. And I remember putting together then a chart with the curve of when this was happening. And I remember discovering, nearly 10 years ago now, 80% of all of the trial conversions happen in the first 2 minutes of someone downloading the app. And that hasn't changed, it's 10 years later. You look at any kind of state of subscription report, like from Revenue Cap, for example, and it's still the exact same. Now it's 82% of all of your initial trials or initial subscriptions will happen within the first 24 hours of someone downloading the app. And, people still really haven't internalized this, I think. And because even just a couple of years after that, I was sat in a boardroom with some founders of my next company. They were plotting out saying, we've got a real issue at day 14, and they'd plotted out every single day saying what the drop off on every single day was. And there was a drop off on day 14, but there was a drop off every day before that too. And I brought them back, and said to him, no, the issue is day zero. Okay, people aren't using the product on day zero. And so the reason I'm telling you this and telling everyone in the audience this is because it's so important that we're spending a lot of time focusing on what that early journey is. And so many companies that I speak up to are so guilty of it. They're like, well, we're building these amazing features. I'm building this amazing thing that people are really going to use. And it's like, no one is even getting there. People are not getting to the point where they can experience your features if they're not getting through that onboarding flow. If they're dropping off on day zero, they're not going to be seeing any of that stuff. So the very first and most important thing you can do is make sure that your onboarding flow is building a relationship with people. It's like the first date with someone. And I did a talk about this about a year or two ago about onboarding flows, how to build onboarding flows that convert. It's on YouTube, or I can send it around if anyone messages me. But you ask ChatGPT, what are the things that make a good first date? It's building that relationship, asking questions, building trust. And building trust is a hugely important part of it. How can you make sure that you are building trust with your customer when they're coming in, or your prospect when they're coming in? Okay, just like any kind of sales pipeline, like what are you asking them? What are you telling them about yourself? How are you showing off a little? What are you educating them on? Like these are such important things that a lot of people and a lot of companies and a lot of products are still not paying enough attention to. And with this kind of explosion of new products, it's becoming more important than ever that people are paying attention to this. So what can they do to make a big impact on that engagement? Yeah, you should be having a focus on what is that ad, like we spoke about before? Is that ad actually connected to your product? Is it connected to the customer psychology of that product? The reasons or the jobs to be done that someone might want to use your product? Are you executing that throughout the funnel? Are you using consumer language throughout the funnel? I had another company on my last company that I was employed by, and my company's 4 years old now. So this is a while ago, but the founder really, really always wanted to use this branded language inside all of our ads, inside all of our onboarding flow. And it was an app, which was an ed tech kind of book summaries app, but they didn't want to call them summaries. They wanted to call them knowledge hacks. And anytime you put knowledge hacks, no one knew what that meant. 5-minute knowledge
Right.
hacks. Yeah, you can think about it and understand what it means, but people don't want to
But
be
you have
doing
to
mental
think.
labor when they're coming through something. They want the simple word. So when we
Yeah.
changed things from knowledge hacks to summaries, okay, the conversion went up because people could immediately understand it. We don't want to put that kind of friction where someone really needs to think. We do want to include positive friction where people are feeling heard and seen and they're asking questions and getting responses. And then after that, how can we tailor the experience, on that product? For example, if someone clicked on a specific book and we gave them a paywall, we'd show that book or that course or that documentary inside the paywall. We would, and we'll talk a little bit about CRM later as well, I think, but like how can we incorporate our CRM and our push notifications and our emails and the holistic journey and the experience around it? And I have huge thoughts about how product and marketing teams can collaborate too. And ultimately at all of the businesses that I was at, product and marketing rolled into growth. And so the
Yeah.
boundaries were already broken down. Like I run growth, I run product and marketing. Okay. So these teams have to collaborate. Otherwise, you're siloing them. You're not building empathy between them and you're giving them their own KPIs. Like they're doing the same thing. And ultimately, nobody should be doing anything if it's not in the business. And I don't mean product and marketing. I mean your customer support team. I mean your developers. I mean your social media team. I mean everyone. Nobody should be doing anything in the business if it's not going to lead to the growth of the business. And so that's what really we need to be thinking about whenever we're thinking about product and marketing team silos. Like how can they collaborate to grow the actual business, not just grow their own KPIs?
Yeah, great. I think in summary, you touch on a few things that make it very simple to start with, which is first impressions matter, right? Focus on the first impressions, the early journey importance, and how can that support you working alongside together with a team on the long-term value. From your experience, if you would have to make it really simple, how can app teams use onboarding, segmentation, and personalized communication to guide users towards long-term value? And you covered quite a little bit of this in here, but if you could make it super simple for everyone that is joining us today, what would you say would be the most important areas?
I would say that what the simplest way to do it, and just have a look at some products, go through and look at the quitting porn app Quitter, look at AI, look at Mob, look at any of these products where you're going through and answering questions, and you'll see that when you get asked a question, you get a response. Okay. If you say, these are the reasons that I want to cook, I want to do meal planning, or I want to just cook a recipe tonight, you will see a return on the next screen, which is related to the thing that you said. And it just makes people feel like, okay, this product, this experience is tailored to me. People don't want to feel like their experience is just the corner of some product. They want to feel like this product is tailored to them. And so we need to make them feel like that in the onboarding flow. So introduce that positive friction. Go through that onboarding flow yourself. You'll be surprised that so many teams don't know their onboarding flows inside out. Go through that experience yourself. Go through other experiences, map them all out, see how you feel when you're going through them. And that would be it. That's the simplest way to do it. Just go through them yourselves, really learn that experience, make sure that you're returning some kind of response when someone says something, whether that's a stat or something, or a quote or a testimonial, or it doesn't need to be anything complicated. Honestly, if you go and look at your reviews on the App Store, you're going to have testimonials about whatever it is. You could return something as simple as that. And then, when someone lands in the app after the onboarding flow, try to surface something that's related to something that they've said. And if you can't, or they've said something too generic, or you don't have anything like that, try to use any kind of indicators or data that you have on them to try and personalize that initial experience as much as possible. For example, I used to work at an audio journalism app. We didn't have a big, long onboarding flow, but we did know where that person was. Okay. And so all we did at the very beginning when it launched, we just showed everyone all of the exact same content. Eventually, then, we didn't have a lot of data on these people, but we knew where they were. So they were in London, they were in Manchester, they were in Barcelona, they were wherever they were. And we just showed them the most popular articles in their immediate area. And that led to a dramatic increase in conversion as well, because people were really finding things that were really relevant to them. With another app, relevancy is key. With another app, it was an app that helped you track your eco actions. So I had leftovers, I got the bus, all we did was we added in a commitment screen. How many eco actions, how much do you want to impact the planet? They would commit to something, and then we added in a commitment screen where they would say, okay, yes, I'm committing to doing this much stuff, I'm committing to that. And their day 30 doubled because of that one simple screen. So it's not always just about removing stuff. Sometimes it's about adding new screens. It's about adding that feedback. It's about adding relevancy. And these are the things that can make huge, huge differences to your business.
Amazing. Lots of good key takeaways there. Thank you so much, Hannah. So of course we see now there's a big focus on lifetime value and retention, even with what you just finished here, Hannah. And measuring the success is becoming harder and harder, right? Yuri, maybe you can help unpack this a little bit more with what you see from your end. But how should app marketers rethink their attribution and measurement when optimizing the full user journey and not just installs? Because installs itself isn't sufficient anymore, right? There's so much more that comes to it. How should we rethink about measuring it and use that as a leverage to optimize going forward?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's why attribution shouldn't consider as a tool which tells you where the install came from. It's really old view, and to optimize the full journey, attribution becomes one of the main decision system. What can I say is that this data should be used not only marketers inside the team, but also product persons, because they should, as we discussed before, understand the full journey and what kind of motivation was put for users to download the application and start to use it. The mind shift we also mentioned shifted from which channel gave me the cheapest install should become which campaign give me users which spend more time or do more impactful actions inside my application. As Hannah mentioned, that first impression is super important, and we consider it as early signals, and definitely it's inside your attribution system should notify you that, okay, at least we were able to attract right users, and we see early signals from them. And here is a trap that team shouldn't stop too early, because when you see first signals, you got first impression, the most important to understand that this first impression is continue to evaluate developing in something bigger with your application. And second thing that across this journey, your own application doesn't create any pitfalls like bugs, some mistakes in onboarding where a user just stuck and decided to leave application because right now it's too easy to switch your attention from any application, basically any application. So you can go to watch stories, you can go to read a book, you can go to play a game. So you should understand the moment where your user could drop your application. Yeah, and as early metrics are signals, unfortunately, it's still not the truth because after first metrics, they can cancel subscription even if they signed for some trial period. You should constantly monitor the health of these cohorts and provide and feed them some new events which will demonstrate for you marketers that they should scale this channel or they should stop to acquiring users from this channel because they just demonstrate some early signals, but after your cohorts will not proceed to become mature, and you should refocus your attention to other sources, or these cohorts continue to deliver like some I call it volume milestones, and together product team and marketing team could go through the full journey and predefine some key value milestones when you understand that user go through all of this milestone, and it means that with high potential, this user and these cohorts will become so mature, so you will deliver these ROAS more than 100%, yeah, which all of teams try to chase. And the same time, teams should understand that users often do super different things inside the application, considering and comparing what like design team designed for these users. So before to scale check, again, it's about complexity. All teams should be involved in understand and build this events map that, for example, designers predefined one path and users, because like your application allowed to do it inside the application, and users decided to choose different paths, and for example they didn't convert into paid subscription, or they didn't open some account for financial application because suddenly like some funny character appears in your application because you decided to introduce some mini games or like character inside your application. Like the another thing which should be achieved with right measurement system for long-term value, it's incrementality, because you should understand what kind of actions definitely lead you for your growth, and you should invest like more resources into these directions. And this is one of the main and it's not easiest, but it's more like predictable way to understand how to scale your business. And it's not like the single blind spot, and you can cover this with meaningful data. So you shouldn't turn your attribution like in some beautiful lie. You should understand every single number and back to like complex and cooperation between teams. All teams should be aligned what they are talking about, because sometimes different teams looking for the same numbers could understand something different before they start to dive deeper, and sometimes it creates sometimes it's funny situation when you try to understand something good. Sometimes it's not a happy situation when product and marketing point to each other and claims that it was a fault from other teams. So you should be aware how to define each metric and how to define each number inside your application, inside your product.
For sure.
And unfortunately, yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you on the incrementality piece as well, because I think there's so much lately on this too. It's becoming so important for a lot of advertisers that are spending as more and more on retention and retargeting strategy as well. But it's also understanding the difference between incrementality and ROAS, and how does that work when you are working with partners that support your retention and re-engagement strategies as well, right? Because very, very often we are now starting to hear a lot of, we want to have the highest ROAS, but also incrementality. And those two metrics a lot of times don't translate into the same directly, right? There needs to be a little bit of a balance as well. And it's defining what your priority is on that. It's difficult sometimes to aim for the best ROAS, but also aim for the best incrementality. They don't both go together. So I think this could be a whole separate topic, add a panel potentially.
Definitely, yeah. And you should break even your North Star metrics into some
Exactly.
small pieces, because to achieve a ROAS from different types of cohorts, you should understand users' behavior, and you should understand where you can tune a bit user journey inside your product and to achieve this target ROAS, because different cohorts have different behavior, and you are lucky when you find your golden cohorts. You understand your audience. It's marketers' job to understand and to find the right personas. Yeah, but at one day you will come to the situation when you should decide, okay, did we consume all available audience for our product, or we still can scale with other type of audience, but we should adopt our product in a proper way. And usually at this moment your product become too complicated. And Hannah mentions that sometimes teams introduce beautiful features and users never see it. So again, try to change your analytics system, your measurement system, and your product. You can implement this feature as live ops, for example, in games. So you can introduce some live ops as a feature, and to check, you can predefine your available metrics. And after you run your live ops, you can see how this live ops affect or didn't affect your key metrics. And if it was affect, you can continue and invest resources to develop this particular feature and put it during long-term user journey, but you will understand the first signals much more earlier. And it means that from the very beginning, you start to get a lot of data. You should understand it, and you should predefine key metrics which you will work after you become much bigger, you become much complex, and not to create some noise around all kind of metrics.
Yes, for sure. So much to unpack on this, I think. And we'll try to cover a little bit more on it at the end if we have a little bit more time, because there's some topics there that I definitely find worth it. But one thing that I see from my end as well sometimes is that when we start a re-engagement or retargeting campaign, there's always a main goal, right? This is the main goal. But what we see a lot of times as well is as we collect data and learn about users more and start different segmentation, personalization, and treat users differently based on the data that we start collecting, a lot of the times we understand that that main KPI isn't isn't no longer relevant, or at least for some of those audiences, and we start aiming for different types. For example, we might have a day seven ROAS goal, and then we might start to understand we're not reaching that day seven ROAS goal as we go on, and that might look that performance isn't actually very good for that campaign. But then what we've seen happening for some cases in particular is that actually we are seeing that the day 14 is much, much better. And it catches up with what was meant to be eventually the day seven goal. So it's also to be open about your metrics, right? And allowed to collect data and initial learnings to adapt and adjust based on your audience, and how you build that going forward. So there's definitely a lot more that we could talk about it. Thank you so much, Yuri, for sharing a lot of your insight on that front. That will take me to the first touch point area, which we haven't talked very much into when it comes to creative. And Hannah touched a little bit on this when we started, on how there was two different types of creatives for this particular client you were working for, Anne, and one of them was definitely way better at the start, but then not so much when we looked into the retention. And Cağatay, this question you can probably share a little bit more insight on, but when it comes to the first touch point at creative is the main bit in here, right? And how are creative strategies evolving, not just to attract more users, because that's not the main goal anymore, but also to make sure they are the high quality users that are more likely to engage, retain, and obviously generate long-term value, because we don't want the ones that are just coming in and then dropping off quickly after. Maybe this goes back to Anna's message as well on how the first impression is so important, right?
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with Anna's story. The ad creative is actually the products, the first impression of the onboarding experience. So it's very important. And right now, the top performing growth teams are no longer view ad creatives as a mechanism to buy the cheapest instance, etc. So if your goal is to acquire the users who will actually engage, retain, and generate a long-term value, throwing generic clickbaits at the wall no longer works on the market. So based on the market data, we are seeing top performing ads leverage three specific creative trends to attract high intent users. The first one is the massive shift towards the interactive pre-qualification. Interactive formats, particularly playable ads in both gaming and non-gaming verticals, by the way, have expanded rapidly beyond these verticals. Instead of serving a passive video, advertisers are deploying interactive UI simulations, feature tryouts, and personalized benefit calculators. This strategy actively pre-qualifies users and communicates the complex value propositions before the download even occurs. The metrics are undeniable on that side. These interactive formats command an incredible 5 to 12 seconds of action attention time and drive install to action conversion rate from 8% to 20%. Because users have already experienced the core value, their downstream attention is significantly higher. We see exact same psychology working in web tab funnels as well, where the interactive web quizzes pre-qualify users who then demonstrate the superior long-term value. Secondly, in the refinement of the entertainment native UGCs, videos are still accounts for roughly 70% of total social ad inventory last year. But the production style has shifted completely to pseudo-native user-generated content. Like to attract high-quality users, creatives must abandon abundant, heavily staged, high production aesthetics in favor of authentic delivery. The winning formula right now requires the demonstration within the 10 to 20 seconds by explaining the core utility inside the ad itself. Brands build immediate trust and lower their overall customer acquisition costs. The third is the tying the creative velocity to the downstream signals, like the ultimately acquiring high quality users means you have to evaluate your creatives based on durability, not just the top line CPI with an ad platform targeting algorithms largely stabilizing and looking very similar across the board. So media execution is no longer a differentiator. Competitive advantage now belongs to the teams with the highest learning speed. Leading advertisers that treat creatives as an integrated system, analyzing early post-install behavior signals, and rapidly iterating on their best concept before the creative fatigue window closes. So to attract users who stick around to pay, you have to stop selling the download. You need to use interactive format, authentic UGC, and high velocity testing to let the users validate the product's value before they ever hit the App Store.
Yeah, for sure. And we're also seeing a lot of playable ads starting to be used for retention and retargeting even, right? While it's in the past, there used to be a format that was very UA driven. And it makes sense because it's a great way of allowing users to experience if they're actually interested in playing the game or using the app. Not so much for retention or retargeting back in the day, because the concept is if the user already knows the game or the app, what is the point of allowing them to play? But we actually seen quite a lot of success with playables as well, going forward, even on retargeting strategies. So definitely a format to bear in mind as well for that, as you can use it to share product updates, for example, on older users that haven't played the game in a while and might want to check out that there's a brand new feature that actually is pretty exciting and they can experience it on a playable ad format. Thank you so much, Cağatay, for sharing a little bit more on what we're seeing ad format wise. We all covered so many different areas, and I always love to say that retention and retargeting is very simple because it can be, but sometimes we might make it sound that it can be a little bit complex. But one thing is that we have more data than ever before now, and that can really be used into an advantage, even though it can sound like a challenge a lot of the times. But if we can unpack that data, there's just so much that we can do going forward to use it as well into our leverage. In terms of a deep learning and AI, and this is a question that I can cover a little bit more myself, is when we can probably use these tools to help a little bit further understand not only user behavior, but also predict future value. And what I see from my end on how AI can support this a little bit as well is that testing is really important as a start, and especially when we come outside of UA, where we usually just let the UA channels deal with machine learning and give it off to them, finding users. And then there's not so much involvement from the marketing teams when it comes to retention and retargeting. It's more of a teamwork, I want to say, and it's quite important that you also work with the partners that you're working with and see them as an extension to your team to help with that. The beauty of it is that the algorithm does the heavy lifting, and that is why we use deep learning as well to interpret the data and help us understand who these users are and how to target them going forward anyways. And that can be pretty simple. The beauty of it and what I see from my end is that it's a little bit of a patience game and allow the algorithm to collect data as well that you can then unpack. But once you do that initial learning bit, it really becomes very simple, and you can become so creative as well with it. The beauty is the personalization. You're not just talking to the overall audience out there, right? And we talked a little bit about this as well, and how dedicated creatives are so important too. And you can do that with retention and retargeting strategies as well, where you can segment your users and segment creative that you're showing to those users as well, which is obviously becoming way more relevant when we're talking about retention. We've covered quite a lot of a lot today, but maybe we have a couple of questions as well that we would love to answer before we wrap up. So we can just maybe do a wrap up last question, each of us on what is it that we should think of going forward. If we could give a last message to the audience that is joining us today, and a practical recommendation for improving user retention and lifetime value, say in the next 6 months, what would that be? So for all our marketers that are joining us today, what will be that recommendation? And maybe I can start and then happy to pass it on around to the rest of the room. But I would say that from my end, will be to not dedicate all your budget to user acquisition only, especially if you dedicate most of your budget to user acquisition. You want to make sure that those users stick around, and focus on retention and re-engagement strategies will really help with that. And most importantly, have that as an evergreen strategy. Even if that isn't taking a big portion of your budget, just have it running as evergreen, because even though you might need some initial time to allow to collect some data, once you have that data and understand your users, there's so much that you can do with it going forward and have personalized journeys for them as well. So it's to really allow that to be part of your marketing mix, and your strategy. Um, Hannah, would you like to go next and share your
100%.
one recommendation?
Yeah, 100%. I would just say look at the entire funnel, just zoom out, winning back starts right from the very, very beginning. So winning back a customer starts from that initial touch point. So just look at what you're doing, how are those creatives flowing into everything, and then make sure that you're really spending a lot of time optimizing your onboarding flow. 80% of your conversions are coming from there. So it wouldn't be amiss to spend 80% of your time optimizing it ultimately. Your onboarding flow is your product. So please just focus there.
For sure. Yeah, great tip. Definitely. Yuri, would you like to share your one
Uh,
last recommendation?
yeah, sure. We talk a lot about importance of collaboration between product and marketing, and if you ever play like doubles in tennis or in paddle, you knows how important to communicate with your partner on court. Yes, so first, like advice, start to communicate with each other, not only with AI. And second, predefine value moments inside your product, share it between marketing teams and product teams, and see on the same dashboards, put like it's on the same screen, and try to understand that marketing, optimizing, user acquisition funnel for the same events product, like evaluate as important events inside product, and then you will be able to accelerate your growth. This communication phase and this defining these metrics will take time. It's normal. So you will discuss, you will battling what kind of metrics, because you shouldn't pick like 50 metrics, like just choose 5 important metrics, align it between teams, and start to optimize and work both teams together to increase these metrics across your application. And it will be like enough for another half year to grow your product.
For sure. Love that. Thank you, Yuri. Cağatay, 30 seconds left.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. If I give one practical recommendation, is it will be like to stop treating retention as a reactive save campaign and engineer it directly into the integrated lifecycle system. Because with the user attention so scarce, sending the push notification after users goes dormant is simply too late. To drive genuine lifetime value, execute two specific fronts. Like the first is adopt a behavior-led design. Stop relying on generic points and badges. Your gamification must map directly to instinct user motivations, like turning routine financial tasks into immersive virtual environments. The second, the fund performance-led reactivation, just like you said, the retention is not a just organic CRM function. Segment your users by behavior readiness and use paid targeting to reintroduce value. So integrate acquisition, reactivation, and retention into a single operating model. Don't wait for a month or to worry to LTV and start doing it from the day one.
Yeah, exactly. Better earlier than later, right?
Yeah. You're right. And
Amazing.
do we have I think we have one question about creatives on
Yeah,
Q&A.
we have two questions. There's the question about creative. Yeah, so um, AI tools are making creative production much faster, but many teams still struggle with creative quality and differentiation. How do you see the balance between AI generated scale and maintaining strong creative performance? This is a very, very popular topic lately.
Yeah. That's why I want to, even though I have a limited voice, I want to express some thoughts on my end to this topic. AI tools, like these AI tools are resolving a lot of problems on the creative producing side, like the analyzing the trends and data from the tools like ours. For example, our platform has its own AI system to find about the trends on the creative content sites. Like we have a quadrant analysis on creative content, reports on specific products. We use AI to generate this information on our site. And on the other hand, if you want to be like the like home triggered as a like AI completely solved the problem of production velocity, but it triggered a massive crisis on visual homogenization. Thanks to generative tools, right now average number of monthly creative per advertisers jumped up by almost 70% year over
Yeah.
year. So AI has essentially given everyone the printing press. But to scale without losing quality, best teams focus on AI mutation instead of pure generation. So they start with an authentic human asset, like a real user-generated video, or which remains a top performing for building trust, and use AI to rapidly edit, localize, and interact. They recognize that like the learning speed has completely overtaken the raw media spend as your primary competitive advantage. So it's important to see the differences between the totally AI generated and AI mutated creative content. So AI is an operational velocity multiplier. Use it to scale your testing and localization, but to keep the human empathy and authentic storytelling at the absolute center of your hook.
Yeah. For sure. And this feedback you shared is very, very similar to what I've been hearing teams saying lately, whereas they use it, they see success using it mostly for iterations, as opposed to create it all from scratch. And that's where
Yeah.
most success is seen in terms of creative generated by AI right now. Makes sense. We a little bit over time, so we have one last question that we can answer very quickly for those who are still on the other side. So there's a question from Alice here on from smaller app teams with limited budget, which growth channel or strategy do you think currently offers the best opportunity to compete with larger publishers? I do have this question quite a bit sometimes as well. I think from my end, the best recommendation that I could give is to definitely try and focus on one channel or two that might give you the best get going from the start as opposed to something that is very niche. Maybe you need something that is a little bit more broad to help you get going. And then take it from there once you start growing, as opposed to trying a lot of different channels, but with small budget on each. Maybe you just need to find one or two channels that can be quite strong and help you on that journey. I don't know if anyone else would like to give any recommendation on this topic in particular.
Yeah, for smaller teams, it's important to keep focus. So to find this focus, try to do some additional research work to understand which channels used by your product category. So not to go to some channels which still not familiar with your audiences and your product. Next, try not to invent wheel from the very beginning and use the best practice and be inspired by larger publishers. And as Vera mentioned, try to use one or two channels with a fast learning cycle. It's super important because with lower signal, some channels provide you a significant amount of data to understand is it possible to grow, or unfortunately you should do something different. And if you got these early signals, you can start to build your predictive models and understand should you scale or not this particular channel. And for every single channel, this cycle should be repeated.
For sure. Thank you so much, Yuri. Definitely agree with that one. We hit 5 minutes over time, so we'll say goodbye to everyone now. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope it was helpful. It was really lovely to have Hannah, Yuri, Cağatay joining me today as well, and very lovely to have you all joining on that end. If anyone has any questions, you know where to find us as well, and we'll be more than happy to continue conversation